Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken, and welcome back to another video. And today we have got a balance update for Deadlock, and it's actually a pretty small update this time around, but there are still some pretty big changes for a couple of characters and items, as well as one very major general change, which I want to talk about here up first. As always, there will be patch notes linked in the description if you want to follow along, so go check that out. And while you're down there, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe so you don't miss out on any future uploads like this from me. But yeah, let's get started by talking about the jump pads here. So these jump pads have gotten a pretty major change that really hurts their viability when you're using them in an actual fight. So if you actually get shot while you're on the jump pad here, just like this, you see that now I get stunned for the entire duration while I'm in the air until I eventually land on the ground at the destination of the jump pad. And so this is a very, very big nerf to jump pads, as you can tell. And the window for actually being stunned is about 0.6 seconds upon interacting with the jump pad. So pretty much just while you're on the jump pad here, that's when you are able to be stunned. And so this means that if you are trying to escape an enemy, or you're just generally in combat and thinking about using the jump pads, you may want to think twice, because if the enemies have a clear line of sight on you and they're actively shooting at you while you're on the jump pad, there's a chance that you will get stunned for a very long time, and they will have a much easier time catching up to you. This will also apply a 30% slow for 2 seconds upon landing, so it is really punishing now to get shot when you are on a jump pad. And so this is really going to shake up the meta for actually traversing the map while you are trying to escape from an enemy, because you are putting yourself at risk of being stunned when you use the jump pads now. Now, these jump pads also basically work the same way as ziplines when it considers what type of damage can actually stun you. So damage over time effects, like Infernus's Afterburn, won't actually stun you when using the jump pad. The only damage that will actually stun you is proper damage from direct abilities or just weapon shots in general, but damage over time effects do not count. So yeah, this is a pretty big change to jump pads, and I'd love to know what you think about it in the comments section down below. Personally, as someone who loves movement and who loves juking the enemies, I'm not really a big fan of this change, just in terms of my initial reception, but you might disagree, and I'd love to hear your opinion and your reason for why you think that way. So let me know in the comments section, but we're going to move on to the other changes now. Now, real quick before we move on to the item changes, I would also like to point out that yes, your eyes are not failing you. There are indeed silly little masks on each and every one of the characters now, and so it's just a random mask. There are a bunch of different variations that you can get in a match, and yeah, it's just a nice little bit of Halloween flair. And also every breakable on the map has been replaced with these pumpkins here. So the boxes that you would normally get souls out of, those are now pumpkins. The golden statues are still the same though. But yeah, let's go ahead and talk about item balance now, because yeah, there weren't any other big general changes this update, and the item changes are also pretty small. Instead of breaking them up by categories, I'm just going to go over all of them here because, well, as you can see on the screen here, the list is fairly short this time around, but there are definitely still some very impactful changes in here, and a lot of things this patch seem to be nerfs. So let's take a look. First of all, Mystic Shot is being nerfed. The base damage has been reduced from 55 down to 45, but the spirit scaling has been increased from 0.65 to 0.75. So these changes are really meant to make Mystic Shot a little bit weaker in the early game, where it is quite impactful, because that extra flat damage is actually quite a huge portion of a character's health bar in the early game. And so it's just a little bit weaker, a little bit less bursty in the early game, but in the mid and late game, it's going to have pretty much the same impact, still be quite good. Warpstone is getting a slight nerf. It's going down from 40% to 35% bullet resist. Still a very good item though. Capacitor is getting 2 nerfs. First of all, the fire rate has gone down from 8 to 5%, but that's not really what you buy the item for. Instead, the very hard-hitting nerf is that the cooldown has been increased from 40 seconds to, now on the patch notes, it says 60 seconds, but in-game here, it says 50 seconds. And if I go ahead and just use this, it is indeed 50 seconds, so it seems like there is a bit of a discrepancy there, where the patch notes are making it sound worse than it actually is, but that is still a pretty big cooldown nerf to Capacitor. Guardian Ward and its upgrade here, Divine Barrier, have both had slight cooldown nerfs from 40 seconds up to 45 seconds, and Reactive Barrier has also had a cooldown nerf from 24 seconds to 26 seconds. On top of that, the Spirit Shielding and Weapon Shielding items here have both been a little bit retooled to have less early game impact, but slightly more more, or rather about the same mid to late game impact. So the starting barrier has gone down from 325 to 300, but the scaling per boon has gone up from 4 to 5. So again, in the early game, these aren't going to be as strong as they used to be, but around the mid to late game, they should be about the same effectiveness. Fortitude is getting a very nice buff. They have shaved off 1 second off the duration where you need to not take damage. So it's gone from 14 seconds to 13 seconds, meaning you get that max health regen a lot sooner. Quite possibly the biggest buff here, though, is to Trophy Collector, which is getting a very hearty 5 extra souls per minute per stack of Trophy Collectors. So that is actually quite a lot of extra revenue, meaning that Trophy Collector is now going to be much better at actually paying itself off and helping you to buy other items. So I don't know if this is going to make more people use it, to be honest, because it is still quite a tough item to invest into, but yeah, it does just make it a little bit better. And if you like buying Trophy Collectors just for the little ding-a-ling every time you get a kill, then hey, that's just a win right there. Majestic Leap, however, has also been nerfed. Similar to a lot of other items, it has a longer cooldown from 28 seconds up to 32 seconds. So kind of just a targeted nerf to Lash, Pocket, and Warden, eh? Now onto some spirit items here. Rusted Barrel now gives you 10 extra health. Yay. Silence Wave has also received a bit of a nerf from 30 seconds up to 35 seconds, and this nerf also affects Spirit Sap, so both of these getting a little bit of a nerf, and Spirit Snatch has taken a pretty brutal nerf here. So the duration has been reduced from 14 seconds down to 10 seconds. That's the duration for which you steal the Spirit Power and the Spirit Resist. And also they nerfed the damage pretty hard, from 75 down to 50. You are losing about a third of your damage on Spirit Snatch with this nerf. That is a very, very big deal. So a lot less burst damage. It still has the same spirit scaling though, so if you have a lot of spirit power, then this nerf doesn't mean quite as much, but especially again in the early to mid game, this is really gonna hurt. However, if you thought the Spirit Snatch nerf was brutal, then the Ethereal Shift nerf is utterly catastrophic. Take a look at this. This is by far the biggest nerf of the entire update, in my opinion, at least when it comes to the item shop. So, the cooldown has been increased. Not by 5 seconds, not even by 10 seconds, nay, not even 15 seconds. Ethereal Shift has gotten a 25-second cooldown nerf, more than double the cooldown, from 20 seconds to 45 seconds, which, hey, that's fair enough. 20-second cooldown on a 4-second invulnerable phase is actually kind of OP, and I'm surprised it went untouched for this long. The question is, did they overcorrect and make it too long of a cooldown now? I don't know, but we're also not done. So the move speed during the phase has been reduced from 4 meters to 3 meters per second of move speed. That's the buff actually that you get after the Ethereal Shift, as you can see there. And yeah, you can also no longer target an Ethereal Shifted ally with something like Rescue Beam or the Cube. So you can't have an ally Ethereal Shift and then Rescue Beam them out of danger. You can only apply the Rescue Beam to them when they're not in the Ethereal Shift, which means they're vulnerable. So really just a big nerf to Ethereal Shift there. Definitely the hardest hit item this update. Finally, though, a buff to Curse. Wow, okay. They reduced the cooldown from 50 seconds to 45 seconds. Hey, alright. Curse enjoyers, stay winning. Alright, now let's move on to the hero balance. Up first, we have Calico, who is getting some nerfs. She received a lot of buffs over the past few updates, and it's made her quite effective, so they're toning back her power a little bit. And most of this is affecting the Gloom Bombs here. So, first of all, the cooldown has been increased from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. Pretty big deal. The damage, the base damage, has been reduced from 55 to 45, and the spirit scaling has been reduced from 0.74 to 0.64. So, really just big nerfs across the board here to the Gloom Bombs, but they have made it so that the multiple bomb damage ratio has increased from 50% to 65%. And what this means is basically, if you didn't know, which actually, I didn't even know this before the patch notes here, so this is new information for me. If you hit an enemy with multiple bombs, then subsequent bombs would only deal 50% of the damage. Now they deal 65% of the damage, meaning that you are extremely rewarded now for hitting multiple bombs on a target just like that. So that is a very, very nice change if you are accurate with Calico. But if you're not precise with the Gloom Bombs, if you're not good at hitting multiple, then these damage nerfs are really going to hurt you. So this is actually kind of a skill check change, and I, for one, I think that's pretty cool. Lastly, Ava will no longer replenish stamina on usage, so you can't use her to cheekily get back all of your stamina. But yeah, moving swiftly on, let's talk about the Doorman, and he is also getting a bunch of nerfs, mostly, surprisingly, to his gun play style. Yeah, never thought that would be so oppressive, but yeah, apparently it is. So yeah, they have nerfed a lot of the things about Doorman's gun build. They nerfed the bullet damage growth per boon from 1.15 to 1.0, so pretty heavy damage nerf there. And they also nerfed the outgoing headshot damage multiplier by 25%, so you get less damage for hitting people in the head. So yeah, that is a pretty big nerf overall to his gun damage, but there is a silver lining. The Call Bell Spirit scaling has been increased from 1.5 to 1.7. That is the explosion damage right there. So if you're a Spirit Doorman enjoyer, then you get a little bit of extra damage on your Call Bell as you ramp up throughout the game. So that's pretty nice. Drifter is getting a couple of balance changes here with the goal of making him more consistent when he doesn't have very many blood stacks, but also preventing him from snowballing quite as hard. So basically what they've done is they have nerfed the amount of damage that you get on an isolated hero kill from 5% to 4%, as you can see here. But they have also increased his base bullet damage from 20.9 to 21.3, and they increased the bullet damage growth from 0.52 to 0.56. So you get more weapon damage now at base and from leveling up, and you get slightly less weapon damage from your blood scent. So bad drifters rejoice, and good drifters who build up a lot of stacks won't be as annoying to fight against. Dynamo is just getting some raw buffs, very nice, so he is getting a little bit of extra fire rate on Quantum Entanglement from 25% up to 30%, and he's getting 3 seconds taken off of the cooldown of Rejuvenating Aura from 48 seconds down to 45 seconds. Just some small, very nice tweaks. Once again, Infernus is getting a pretty good amount of nerfs, so his bullet damage growth per boon has been reduced from 0.12 down to 0.08. That's actually a very big deal there, a lot less damage, and they have also reduced a couple of his upgrades. So the Flame Dash Tier 2 has gone from 35 down to 30 extra damage. Afterburn Tier 1 has been reduced from 25% spirit damage down to 20%, so a little bit less survivability from this Tier 1 upgrade. And then the Tier 3 has also been reduced from 28 DPS down to 26 DPS. So yeah, just a little bit less damage on Infernus across the board now, regardless of which playstyle you enjoy. And also a little bit less survivability thrown in there too. Kelvin is getting some big nerfs here, so let's take a look at this. First of all, big nerf to his laning phase. His base regen has been cut in half, from 2 down to 1, which puts him in the same category of weak laners as 7 when it comes to his innate regen. That's very, very concerning. And also, they have reduced his headshot reduction from 20% down to 25%. So yeah, that is referring to how much damage he actually gets when he crits somebody in the head. I just wanted to double check there to make sure it wasn't talking about his own headshot damage reduction, which he doesn't have. So yeah, less damage on crit hits. And then finally, this nerf is very self-explanatory. The Frozen Shelter cooldown has been increased by 20 seconds, from 150 up to 170. So less objective freezing, less saving teammates in big team fights, less trapping enemies in to die. Yeah, you have to be a lot more deliberate with your Frozen Shelters now. McGinnis' Medicinal Spectre now has a 1-second linger time. What the heck does that mean? Well, if I go ahead and throw the Medicinal Spectre down and then half health myself, you can see that I'm getting healed. And now if I go outside of the Medicinal Spectre, I still get healed for 1 second. And so you have a little bit of leeway to actually leave the Medicinal Spectre. So that's a very nice quality of life change. It allows you to be a bit more maneuverable, and it also really benefits your allies who don't like staying in one place very long. Paradox is getting some nerfs. Unsurprisingly, we were just talking about how good she is in a video a couple of days ago. But yeah, Paradox is getting a little bit less base bullet damage from 6.48 down to 6.15, and she's also getting an increase to the cooldown of Paradoxical Swap from 70 seconds to 75 seconds. So definitely lighter nerfs than to a character like Kelvin, but still definitely nerfs nonetheless to make her a little bit weaker. Apparently my recent videos have been quite topical because Ball 7 is getting buffed. Hey, look at that. The first 7 buff in how many months? Oh my goodness. So yeah, the Lightning Ball Spirit scaling is increasing from 0.43 to 0.55, so you get more damage on the Lightning Ball when you build for items like Boundless Spirit. That's quite nice. Still probably not the best playstyle though. Now, here's a change that I'm not necessarily sure I agree with, even though it doesn't affect me personally. So, Shiv is getting 10% reduced alt-fire knockback. What the heck does this mean? Well, if you aren't a Shiv savant, then yeah, you might not know that. Yeah, he actually knocks himself back when he uses his alt fire, just like this. And you can actually use that for some pretty cool movement tech. Now, personally, I don't know how to do it. I'm not that interested in Shiv to the point that I've learned how to do the movement tech for him yet. But yeah, it means that if you were skillful at Shiv and you actually knew how to use this alt fire to your advantage, now you are rewarded a little bit less for actually knowing how to do that. And so I'm not sure if this is the right change, and that's something that A, Shiv mains are going to have to let me know about in the comments, but B, do you actually struggle against Shiv players who do this tech? Do you think this is fair? Was he too oppressive with the tech when it comes to playing against him? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Victor is once again receiving some nerfs. Whoa, crazy. So first of all, the Pain Battery Tier 1 and Tier 2 have been swapped. So now at Tier 1, you get that 40% slow, and then at Tier 2 is when you get the 40 extra damage. This is a big nerf to his laning presence because, well, one of the best strategies for Victor on lane was just putting 1 point into the Pain Battery early on, you would get 40 extra damage, and you'd be hitting for 140 damage without any items. That was very powerful, so now you have to invest more before you get that damage. Also, they have nerfed the Aura of Suffering yet again. So they have nerfed the max damage from 80 down to 70, and then the Tier 2 has been reduced from 10 and 50 down to 8 and 40 min DPS and max DPS, so very big nerfs there. We do have some buffs to round things off, though. First of all, a small buff to Vyper here. The Screw Jab Spirit Scaling has been increased from 0.65 and 0.33 to 0.8 and 0.4. This is in terms of the damage on the initial dagger and then also the damage per stack. So that is actually quite a very nice change for Spirit Vipers in particular. If you stack a lot of Spirit power, the Screw Jab daggers can be hitting a lot harder now. And finally, Warden is getting a couple of buffs. It's been a while since he's seen some buffs too, so this is truly a momentous occasion. Warden and 7 buffs in the same update. So Warden is getting a little bit of extra base bullet damage from 15 up to 16.2. And then the Binding Word range is getting 1 extra meter of cast range. And yeah, that's it. It's not really anything to write home about, but they are Warden buffs nonetheless. So, hey, good job, Warden mains. Congratulations. You get a little bit more damage, I guess. And yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. So let me know what you think about these changes in the comments section down below. Certainly a smaller update than, honestly, what I expected here towards the end of October. But maybe they'll have some more stuff cooked up for us soon. But yeah, it's always nice to see some balance changes, even if some of them might be a little contentious. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the more spicy changes in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that way you don't miss out on any future videos from me, including update videos such as this one. But yeah, with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.